Hey kids, hey kids, hey kids, hey kids, you all know what time it is. It's time for Karch
and Wendy
and Bluster
and Bliss
to tell you what today's adventure is.
Hey kids,
Hey kids,
hey kids,
hey kids, you all know what time it is.
Springfest, a gallery of seasons story. Spring World, Story 3 by Brian J. Klink. Hi, Wendy here. Today I'm here to tell you a little more about our home in Spring World and our most special holiday, Springfest. I'm also going to take some time and introduce you to a few more of my fantastic friends. You're going to love them. Of course, there's Tang, my best friend for as long as I can remember. We do almost everything together. Tang loves to play games and is possibly the most clever resident in Spring World. But there are many more friends here in Spring World, each with special and unique traits and talents. You probably remember the Beak brothers, Sal and Hal, from the Springfields adventure. They saved Tang and I by calling us into the pines just before Skull found us after crossing the rickety bridge near Natural Springs. Sal and Hal have been fun and faithful friends, but there are more. There's Lisa, who is a short-term visionary. She believes her visions are true, but sometimes they are not quite on target. Also, her visions are only for the current day, so it's best to see her in the morning if you want to know what she sees for the day. And Gore, which is short for gorgeous. Gore is our local fashionista. Her planning and decorating skills are top-notch. She is the lead organizer for Springfest. And Feisty, the smallest but toughest talking resident of Spring World. He's always talking about how strong he is and how he's going to defend Spring World. But he might be all talk and no action. And we can't forget our Spring World troublemakers. Skull, who you may have met in the story of Skull, is always a possible problem. Skull likes to spook those who venture to the far side of Natural Springs. And Viper, the less visible but more dangerous resident of Spring World. Viper's ability to temporarily hypnotize others can be incredibly powerful. There are still a few more residents, but Tang says we need to get on with today's story. Springfest celebrations are held at the Happy Hut, which is located just downstream from the rickety bridge. Here, let me show you on a map. You have to be careful if you are going to the Happy Hut. You don't want to run into Skull. Springfest days are quite fun and full of interesting activities. We believe Springfest is the very best fest. Why? Because we make magnificent mango pie. Our mango pie is smooth, creamy, and a bit tangy, which is why we affectionately call it Mango de Tango. But getting the mangoes to the Happy Hut takes a lot of work and thought. And as our Springfest organizer, Gore, is in charge, many believe we would not be able to have a successful Springfest without Gore's organizational skills. Our adventure starts with Gore asking Lisa if she had any visions about the day ahead while we waited for our assignments. Lisa shared her visionary results for the day. Today's trouble level is moderate. Why? Skull has not been seen for several days, but Viper's status is unknown. Now Gore had a big decision to make, but she didn't want to make the decision alone. So she asked everyone what they wanted to do by conducting a vote. Well, everyone voted yes to go ahead except for Chip. Why? Chip was afraid of Viper. Then Feisty stepped in and said, "You stay with me, Chip. I'll keep you safe." We were all appreciative of Feisty's brave gesture. We also knew that Chip might now be the safest of all, with Feisty having pledged to make sure of his safe travels. With Chip now happy, Gore began thinking about assignments to move the mangoes to the Happy Hut. You should know getting the mangoes to the Happy Hut takes a lot of work and thought. The process has 3 key steps. First, a team needs to pick the mangoes over in Mango Grove. Second, another team needs to float the mangoes down natural springs on Leaky Boat. Third, they all have to be carried from Leaky Boat to the metal kettle. As our leader, Gore had to decide who was going to help with each task. Who should collect the mangoes? Who should float with the mangoes on Leaky Boat? Who should carry the mangoes to Metal Kettle? What an important job! What would Gore decide? Well, the reason Gore was our Springfest organizer became clear. She knew what to do. Gore decided to assign us, based on our talents, to 3 teams. What a fantastic idea! We were all excited to find out our team and assignment. Team 1 included Sal, Hal, Lisa, and Tang. They would be responsible for getting the mangoes from the trees and down to Leaky Boat. Tang interrupted for a moment to ask a question. "I'm curious, Gore. How did you decide who should be on Team 1? Well, Team 1 includes Sal, Hal, Lisa, and Tang because they can all fly. I believed it would be much easier for the Beak Brothers and Tang to knock the mangoes off the trees, especially Hal, with his giant beak." Hal smiled. "But what about Lisa? She's on the team to keep an eye out for Skull and Viper." Gore continued. Team 2 included Wendy because she's such a fine swimmer and could help guide the Leaky Boat down Natural Spring. Feisty and Chip are also on Team 2 because they are lightweight and can ride on the boat. Also, Chip would be able to contribute with little risk of meeting either Skull or Viper. Gore finished by explaining Team 3 would include everybody. Teams 1 and 2 would meet at the Leaky Boat. Then we would form an assembly line to transport the mangoes to Metal Kettle. What a fine plan by Gore. So that's the story of Springfest. You now know where the Happy Hut is located, just over the rickety bridge. You also know Feisty bravely stepped up and volunteered to keep Chip safe, and how Gore organized 3 teams for the key steps by matching the task with each of our individual skills. You also learned how we celebrate Springfest with our magnificent Mango de Tango pie. All of us here in Spring World hope you enjoyed our time together and you will look for more adventures from the Gallery of Seasons. 8 Spring World characters appeared in today's adventure. They are Wendy, Tang, Sal, Hal, Lisa, Gore, Feisty, and Chip. Can you find them in the Spring World painting? Here they are.